manner, but I think we'll have DTC by April 2013 at least, is what the anticipation is. GST is obviously a very weighted move from an Indian industry perspective. People are eager to get into the GST mode. It's just that the government is not able to find its feet in terms of how do we kind of implement GST after as you would know, the backdrop, VAT got introduced after a long struggle or battle between the center and the states, and therefore we anticipate that this will be a kind of a uniform struggle even for implementation of GST, because of the nature of the taxes covered and the center to share taxes and the state to share taxes. So there is going to be a little bit of a long roadmap that we envision here, but yeah, I mean the government feels that GST implementation is on course. It was again going to come on April 1, 2012. I think it's going to go up to 2013 definitely. There is going to be some effort to kind of get consensus on FDI in multi-brand retail. We had a announcement come sometime back, which kind of was welcomed by the world, but just kind of to go down politically, that it didn't go anywhere. But yeah, I mean there is going to be some effort to get multi-brand retail 51% up in the air again and see how it goes. There is going to be some plans to increase FDI limits in airlines, as the government has been trying to do with various other industries. So defense industry is also one of the industries that the government is thinking about going up from FDI of 26% to about 49%. So I think they are slowly beginning to realize that foreign investment, foreign technology, collaboration, etc. is important in some critical industries, and this will probably be the path that we see in terms of further liberalization. There is going to be some liberalization on loans, which is ECB or external commercial borrowings. ECBs, as you would know by way of backdrop, are foreign loans from banks or international financial institutions or from shareholders, and they are restricted for particular uses only. For example, capital expenditure or whatever. They are going to liberalize a bit of ECB norms. So one of the and we don't need to guess here, but one of the norms that ECB will be used is for allowing working capital in the airlines industry. So we all know where that's coming from. There are some other reforms, and I won't spend too much of time, but one of the important reforms is that there is going to be a white paper to tackle black money. This is going to be very interesting because obviously the whole loom political threat about anti-corruption, etc. So it will be very interesting to see how this white paper to tap black money comes into place. There's another know your customer depository. So I think there will be a lot more of rigor on documentation in terms of finding out who your profile, your background, the company background. So they are going to get some norms in place to probably know investors better, so that there is more transparency. I'll jump straight into the tax and the international tax proposals. Again, from a tax rate perspective, there have been no rate changes really. It's beneficial. I mean, there are some beneficial movements in personal tax. So obviously, there's going to be some more of net take-home pay for all of us. But I'm assuming that's only marginal. There's been no change in corporate taxes. So foreign companies, domestic companies, etc. will still pay the same amount of tax in India. And the Indian companies who are also liable to pay an additional dividend distribution tax apart from their corporate tax, so that rate also remains the same. The only good thing that happened with respect to the dividend distribution tax was that earlier it was only allowed, there was no credit for holding subsidiary payments unless there are some conditions which are satisfied. Now the government has said that if there is a subsidiary and the subsidiary declares a dividend to a holding company, and a holding then declares a dividend again to its overseas holding company or whatever, then you can credit off the DDT that the subsidiary pays against the DDT that you have to pay. So earlier these rules were a little bit complicated. Now, even if you're multi-layered companies, you can claim credits for the dividend taxes that has been paid by the lower level company. So that's been a welcome move. But I'll just get into a little bit of controversy, and I'm happy to address any questions. So somebody mentioned about the indirect transfers or the Vodafone case. And for the purpose of those who probably are not too aware of the Vodafone case, this was basically a share transfer at an overseas jurisdiction. The way the Indian income tax law currently reads is that only share transfers or capital gains on the sale of Indian shares, because these shares are situated in India, will be taxed in India. And the argument was that since the shares that have been transferred are shares of an overseas company, India does not have the right to tax it. And that's the way the legislation read, saying that only capital assets situated in India, which are shares in India, when they are transferred, that's when there will be a tax. The scope of taxation will be covering that in India. So this was obviously the government, it was too big an amount to kind of let go, and the government obviously had had a point in the sense that the value of the value of the entity is derived from Indian assets, and therefore even if you're indirectly transferring Indian shares, that should be covered. The Supreme Court in its Jan 20th judgment earlier this year clearly laid down the rules, saying that you cannot read anything more than what is currently given in the legislation, and they kind of blessed the fact that indirect transfers are not taxable. The shares have to be in India, and along with that, a lot of tax treaty related arguments, which were like Mauritius is blessed or whatever, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But it was a clear signal, a right. It would be politically incorrect of me to say whether it was right or wrong, but the Supreme Court in its best judgment said that the capital gains on capital investment in India will be deemed to be capital punishment. So, they were very strong in their views. They clearly laid down the ground rules that, only if shares are held in India, will be taxable. If there are overseas transfers, they are out of jurisdiction. And in that sense, it kind of, when we speak to clients or when we speak to various investors, it was the right kind of message for the Indian investment climate. It was the right message for whether it was foreign direct investment, whether it was for portfolio investment, or whether it was for private equity investment. I think any investor in India needs certainty today, needs clarity, because he needs to understand what is the tax cost for doing business in a country, and that's when he decides whether he wants to come into the country or not. So clarity was one of the biggest expectations that foreign investors generally have when you want to get into another overseas jurisdiction. And somewhere there was faith in the Indian judicial system after the judgment, saying that you may have to go through the long drawn process of whatever 5, 10, 15 years of litigation, but finally you see the light at the end of the tunnel, because the Supreme Court still is a single-minded body which thinks independently, which is judicious, which is headed by the right people, and you expect the right decisions this way or the other. But I mean, at least it's bang on law. So that really kind of boosted our image in that sense. Well, there was a suspect because it's not unusual for the government to kind of make retrospective amendments or change or overturn Supreme Court decisions. They have done this in the past, but I would say this was not to the magnitude of what we are facing in the Vodafone case currently. So there were tax judgments or tax issues that were reversed by the budget after the Supreme Court ruling or whatever. But this was a big one. So one of the biggest amendments that has been brought out in this budget is a retrospective amendment taking you way back up to 1962, where they're saying that, and the way the government is portraying it, it's basically an explanation that this was always our intent, that direct or indirect transfers will be subjected to tax in India, and we are just clarifying it because it was not in the law. And we can have an hour or next 2 hours or 24 hours debate on what is right or what is wrong. But yes, I mean, this is what the government stand now is. So it's basically foreign shares will be deemed to be situated in India if they derive their value significantly from Indian assets. There is no direction on what significantly means. The DTC proposed to do something, but had at least given you some direction, saying that if 51% or more of the value is derived from Indian assets, then indirect transfers would be subjected to tax in India. At least that was giving a direction. This one's left it open. Obviously, we'll see how the parliament, reacts to it. There'll be changes over the next month or so. So there is going to be some, but in my own personal assessment, I think this may go through. Whether right or not, we'll see. I mean, obviously, there are other countries like China, Peru, or whatever have done these kind of amendments, but I think uh, the voice of the industry is saying that this should have been prospective. At least we know where we are and we're getting into this business. Retrospective amendment is somewhere, whether constitutional or not, it is valid in the constitution. Parliament has the powers to do retrospective amendments, but given the climate that we are in and the certainty that investors want while coming into India, I think it was a more, I think it was a strategic miss by the government to to make this amendment, but we'll see. There have been some other amendments in terms of foreign dividends, because most of Indian MNCs are having subsidiaries abroad. So there was this whole thing about foreign dividends coming into India getting taxed at 30%. I think they've kind of rationalized this last year, and they said that any foreign dividends that come into India from overseas subsidiaries of Indian multinationals will be subjected to tax at 15%. Next, we just come quickly to the tax treaty. So this whole Mauritius tax treaty, where there are capital gain exemptions for shares held and sold by Mauritian holding companies. The Indian government has made a requirement that tax residency certificates for these overseas holding companies are important. So this overseas holding companies who hold Indian investments, they need to have a certificate issued by the overseas revenue authorities that they are tax resident. Mauritius has been over the years been a favored destination for investment into India, and over the years Mauritian revenue authorities have tightened the requirements for issuance of tax residency certificates. So this is something that they are going to implement across countries.